Now to a CNN exclusive report, an inside look at an elite Ukrainian sniper unit armed with Western-made weapons taking out Russian targets.
A fast-moving Russian assault force thought speed would save them until one sniper shot turned the battlefield into a trap. What happened in this Ukrainian ambush reveals how drones, snipers, and battlefield intelligence are reshaping modern warfare forever. More than a dozen motorcycles lay burned across an open field. Twisted metal, abandoned gear, and scattered tracks marked the path of an assault that never reached its objective. No major city fell. No front line suddenly moved. Yet what happened here caught the attention of military observers for a different reason. This wasn't just a failed attack, it was a warning. And that's where things get interesting. The entire engagement raised a question that armies everywhere are now asking. If speed was once the answer to surviving modern battlefields, what happens when every movement can be watched from above? Because on this day, speed wasn't safe. It was the beginning of the problem. Russian commanders didn't choose motorcycles by accident. Traditional armored assaults had become increasingly dangerous as tanks and fighting vehicles faced constant threats from drones, artillery, and precision strikes. Every large vehicle moving toward the front risked being spotted long before reaching its target. Motorcycles seemed to offer a different solution. They were cheap, fast, and easy to replace. Small assault groups could move quickly across open ground, probe defensive positions, and search for weak points in enemy lines. If losses occurred, they were considered less costly than losing armored vehicles and trained crews. On paper, it looked practical. But what looked practical on paper was about to face a very different reality.
These machines and men working at a tempo they were probably not designed for. They know why they are here, though.
The idea was simple: move fast enough and spread out enough that defenders struggle to react. Motorcycle units could weave through terrain, avoid predictable routes, and reach positions that heavier vehicles couldn't access. Their speed was supposed to reduce exposure and create confusion among defenders. But here was the real purpose. These riders often acted as the first wave. They were expected to trigger enemy reactions, expose defensive positions, and provide information for heavier forces arriving behind them. In theory, the strategy offered flexibility, speed, and lower costs. The problem was that theory assumed one critical thing: surprise. And this is where everything started to fall apart. Ukrainian forces had developed a powerful advantage across many contested sectors. They controlled much of the low-altitude airspace, using reconnaissance drones that could watch large areas for extended periods. From the ground, open terrain can feel enormous. From above, it's a different story. Routes become visible, patterns emerge, repeated movements stand out. The very speed that motorcycle units depended on began creating predictable paths through the landscape. Instead of hiding movement, it highlighted it. And before the assault force even approached its target area, much of the surprise had already disappeared. Long before any shots were fired, Ukrainian reconnaissance drones were already watching. They stayed far enough away to avoid detection, while carefully tracking the movement of the motorcycle group below. Every turn, every pause, and every adjustment added new pieces to a growing picture. But here's what nobody on the ground realized. The drones weren't just observing individual riders, they were studying behavior. Which routes were preferred? Where did the formation slow down? Which areas naturally funneled movement into narrow corridors? Slowly, a force built around mobility was becoming predictable, and that information wasn't being stored for later, it was being passed forward in real time.
Опять вправо. Ага, вижу.
The moment reconnaissance teams understood the likely route, sniper teams began preparing. Instead of waiting for contact and reacting under pressure, they moved into carefully selected positions ahead of time. Likely approach routes were covered. Choke points were identified. Escape options were considered before the attackers even arrived. This coordination changed everything. The drones above and the shooters on the ground were not operating separately. They were functioning as one connected system. Information flowed continuously between observation and action. By the time the motorcycle unit moved closer, much of the ambush was already in place. The attackers simply didn't know it yet. Imagine moving across open ground, believing nobody has seen you. That's exactly the confidence the motorcycle riders appeared to have. Their formation remained steady. Their speed stayed consistent. Nothing suggested they were entering a carefully prepared kill zone. But the defenders already knew far more than the attackers did. They understood the likely route, the timing, and the areas where movement would become restricted. That information advantage allowed them to control the pace of the engagement. And that's the important part. The battle wasn't shaped by the first shot, it was shaped by everything that happened before it. Then came the moment that changed everything. A sniper round struck the lead rider. The motorcycle lost control, crashed, and suddenly blocked the narrow path being used by the advancing group. For a split second, confusion spread through the formation. Riders behind were forced to slow down. Some tried to stop. Others attempted to maneuver around the wreckage without knowing where the threat was coming from. And then, the entire rhythm collapsed. What had been a fast-moving assault force only moments earlier became a collection of individuals reacting in different ways. Momentum disappeared almost instantly. Coordination started breaking apart. The advantage that motorcycles were supposed to provide, speed, flow, and constant movement, vanished with a single shot. And the worst part? The real ambush was only beginning. And this is where the situation became even worse for the riders. The follow-up shots weren't random. Snipers focused on soldiers trying to regroup because regrouping meant restoring control. Anyone who slowed down, looked back, or attempted to organize others suddenly became a priority target. Every shot seemed carefully timed. What made it so effective was uncertainty. The firing rhythm stayed measured, never revealing exactly how many shooters were involved or where they were positioned. With every impact, tension grew. Command struggled to spread through the unit. Fear moved faster than information, and confusion began outrunning leadership itself. The motorcycle assault depended on movement, but now movement was creating new problems. Riders became separated from one another, making coordination nearly impossible. Some accelerated away, hoping to escape, while others stopped in exposed positions with nowhere to hide. For a moment, imagine being there. Do you keep moving and attract attention, or stay still and become an easy target? There was no good answer. The tactic's greatest strength had suddenly become its greatest weakness. Russian troops responded quickly, firing toward tree lines, open fields, and any area that looked suspicious. The problem was simple. Nobody could identify a confirmed sniper position. Without clear targets, return fire became based on guesses rather than information. Soon, volume replaced accuracy. More rounds were fired, but the effect remained limited. The noise increased. The pressure increased. Yet the unseen threat remained. And with every failed attempt to locate the shooters, frustration and stress continued to build across the battlefield. Then came requests for artillery and mortar support. On paper, indirect fire offered a way to break the ambush and regain control. But accurate fire requires accurate coordinates, and those coordinates never fully materialize. By the time support was directed towards suspected firing positions, the snipers had already moved. Shells struck locations where danger had existed moments earlier, not where it existed now. The effort was real, but the results simply never matched it. And this is where things started unraveling. Radio traffic grew louder as different voices attempted to make sense of the situation. Some called for suppression, others demanded directions. Orders overlapped, creating more confusion instead of clarity. Dust, smoke, and constant movement made visibility worse. Attempts to pin down the shooters failed repeatedly. Slowly, the command lost its grip on events. Meanwhile, the defenders continued operating according to a plan, keeping control of the battlefield's tempo. With the motorcycle unit pinned down, armored support was called forward. Tanks and BMPs began moving toward the area with the expectation that heavier weapons and stronger protection could stabilize the fight. The remaining troops waited for help, hoping armor would finally shift momentum back in their favor. What had started as an assault was now becoming something different, a rescue effort. Everything increasingly depended on whether those reinforcements could arrive in time.
Отлично.
But here's the twist. The reinforcements were detected before they even reached the battlefield. Ukrainian reconnaissance drones spotted the approaching vehicles and immediately passed that information through the network. That early warning changed everything once again. Sniper teams no longer needed to stay in place. They disengaged and relocated before the armor arrived. When Russian vehicles finally opened fire, many of their rounds struck empty positions. Information had beaten firepower once more. Now the engagement entered a new phase. As sniper teams pulled away, FPV drones took over. What had begun as a carefully prepared sniper ambush evolved into a drone-led attack against the arriving armor. The drones targeted vulnerable areas on tanks and BMPs, forcing crews to react immediately. Hatches closed, visibility dropped. Attention shifted from supporting troops to surviving incoming threats. And that's what mattered most. The vehicles were still present, but their effectiveness was fading. Under constant drone pressure, armor became pinned down, unable to fully control the battlefield or rescue the stalled assault force. This wasn't really a story about motorcycles. It was a story about information. The attacking force had speed, weapons, and reinforcements. The defenders had awareness, and throughout the engagement, awareness proved more valuable. Modern battlefields are increasingly shaped by observation linked directly to action. Drones spot movement. Information moves instantly. Decisions happen faster than physical maneuver. Mobility still matters, but mobility without information can become a liability. That may be the most important lesson from this ambush, and it's a lesson military planners around the world are paying close attention to. The battlefield shown in this ambush may represent the future of modern warfare. Drones watched, snipers waited, and information guided every decision. The result was a failed assault long before the attackers understood what was happening. As technology evolves, armies everywhere are studying lessons from encounters like this.